I don't know where this team goes from here. It's really they're in a really tricky spot right now with playoff expectation and not just aspiration. It's different. There was playoff expectation this year. One Royal way back at it here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Wish it were under better circumstances, obviously. Recording this not long after the Royals finished up their series against the Chicago, or not the Chicago White Sox, although they did get swept there too. The Boston Red Sox at home, and the Royals got swept at home. 50 games done now in the 2026 season, and the Royals sit at 20-30. After they had climbed out of it after a 7-16 start, I believe it was, get all the way back to 19-21, and now you've won one of your last 10 games and sit, 10 games below 500 now. And even with how awful the American League is, and specifically the American League Central, you're not putting yourself in a great position to succeed here when it looked like we were having a very different conversation about where they were at leading into that White Sox series, given the way that they had played over their previous 16 games. Still got 6 more chances at home with Seattle coming to town this weekend, a team that you had swept previously, a team that has still been pretty inconsistent throughout this season, and then the Yankees, who have owned you for the last 2 years. It's going to be tough sledding regardless, but we'll talk about this series that we saw, just a couple of things from that. And then we got a 50-game sample now. What's gone wrong to this point? What can be fixed? How we can move forward. How do we evaluate this team as this thing goes forward over the next 112 games? Before we do that, be sure to like, rate, subscribe, review on all platforms, hit those notification bells so you know when these episodes go up on the audio and video side. If you are an audio-only listener, we appreciate you as well. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It does help this channel grow as more people see this as we go forward throughout this season. Still a few months to go. And this show, as always, brought to you by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our partners in Possible here at Kansas City Sports Network. We can't thank them enough for their support over the last 5 years and the last 3 years on this show. Royals lost 3-1 on Monday, 7-1 on Tuesday, and then 4-3 tonight. 21 games this season. The Royals have scored 2 runs or less, and this is now I believe it's 38 games now after the way that this series went, where games decided by 3 runs or less, one way or the other. And a rough one tonight. I mean, you give yourself a chance late in this one. Steven Cruz gives it up. You got a great start from Michael Wacha, but just are not able to get it across. He had the tying run on second with 2 outs, I guess, or with 1 out, in the 9th inning. Lake Thomas pops out, Michael Garcia grounds out, and that's your ball game. 3 for 19 in the series with runners in scoring position. I think it's 3 for 16 with 19 left on base. 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position and 19 guys left on base. You're not going to win games that way. And it's been a problem all year. We'll talk more about that later on in the episode. And you got a couple of decent starts, in this series with Lugo. He gives you a quality start, gets you into the 6th. Michael Wacha gives you 6 strong. It nearly got away from him in that 2nd inning, but he battled back, bared down, and was able to get through 6 and give you an opportunity. And he stayed in. Elias Diaz hits the home run, and then gets you into that 6th inning and threw it. And then Steven Cruz gives up a 2-run homer, and that was the game right there. Tuesday was a little tricky because of the bullpen game with Chris Bubich going on the injured list with left elbow soreness. Eli Morgan comes back up, so they had to go bullpen day. And, those games, there's a lot of variance involved because you're relying on guys to throw earlier in the game than they're used to, try and get multiple innings out of guys and not make it a true Johnny Holstaff game. Bailey Falter gives up 2 runs in his first 2 innings. Linder Avila shuts it down, gives you 3 innings with 3 strikeouts and only a couple of base runners. He did really well. Schreiber was fine. Nick Mears gave up a run, but he gave you 2 innings when you probably weren't expecting that. And then Eli Morgan just got shelled. 7 hits and 4 runs given up in his inning of work in the 9th inning. When it was at that point a 3-1 game, still in the balance, and it just completely got away. But in that scenario, like, you're trying to get innings out of anybody. You're not going to throw Ursig. You're not going to throw Lynch in that situation because you're going to need them the next couple of days. Those are the guys you have in when you're leading, and they needed an inning out of Morgan, and he couldn't get it done. And it kind of led to needing Steven Cruz to throw the 7th inning tonight, and it bit him. But you're also not going to try and sneak 2 maybe the only nit I'd pick is that I would probably have tried to get 2 innings out of Daniel Lynch, but if he got knocked around, then you're having to go to Cruz or whoever in a much more precarious situation, or try and get 4 or 5 outs from Ursig, and that's a tricky proposition. So one thing kind of led to the other. But overall, man, I mean, this team is they're a good team at home, and they got knocked around by Boston all week. A team that has already made significant changes to their coaching staff, to their roster. They've already made, they're already trying to figure all that stuff out. I mean, they fired the manager, they fired the hitting coach, they fired everyone but the pitching coach. They brought up the manager from AAA, and they're not world beaters, but they looked like it this weekend, right? They had a worse record coming in, and now they got a better record going out. And the Royals are last in the AL Central now. And it's frustrating. And I don't know where this team goes from here. It's really, they're in a really tricky spot right now. With playoff expectation and not just aspiration, it's different. There was playoff expectation this year. I feel like last year was a little bit aspirational because of what they were able to do in 2024. You felt like they should be able to get back. Obviously fell short, but still had a winning record. This year, I mean, they're going to have to go on a crazy run to get there. At least at this point last year, they may not have been a great team, but they were still above 500. They were still like in it, right? They were still in enough contention to where you could still, put yourself in a position, feel like they were going to be able to put themselves in position. I don't know if this team has that this year right now. They've found ways to lose a lot of these games. And it's just when one thing's going right, another thing's going wrong. And then they fix that thing, and then another thing goes wrong. And they haven't been able to have any level of consistency. Felt like they were able to waterfound its level a little bit in that 16-game stretch where they went 11-5, got themselves back in it. And now it's completely flipped back on its head, lost 9 of 10. And now you're in a spot where you're on the mat, just to keep that boxing analogy going, and the ref said 8. Are you going to be able to get up? Are you going to be able to show signs of life? Are you going to be able to find a way to win some of these games, flip some of these results? I don't know if they're going to be able to. The offense is what it is, I think, at this point. Like, Bobby's great. Jack shows some promise. A couple hits today against the lefty. Not going to act like they were line drives in the scorebook, but they were not line drives on the field. And then he comes up in a big at-bat against a lefty and strikes out on a slider down in a way that every lefty is able to get him out with. Vinny has not gotten going at all when they thought maybe he showed signs of turning it around. Mike Hell's been fine, but an 0-for-5 tonight, and OPS got below 700 now. You got so many pitching injuries that you're a bullpen that was already in flux and struggling in areas is now getting leaned upon more because you have them go to a bullpen day. Who knows what you're going to get from Noah Cameron, right? Stephen Kolek, better outing, on Sunday in St. Louis. We talked about that. You kind of know what you're going to get from Waka. Lugo is, feels like it's touch and go sometimes. And those guys are going to be leaned upon And outside of Daniel Lynch and Lucas Ursig, like, who do you go to in this bullpen right now with Strom on the shelf that you truly believe is going to be able to get you a clean inning? Like, I don't know. So, and this is where we're going to get to on the other side of this is what do we view, like, how do we view successes coming out of this season? Because I don't think it's going to be playoffs, right? And it's still going to feel disappointing, and it's kind of damning with faint praise to try and find silver linings in this and how we can still view this season as a quote unquote success when it clearly is not at this point and doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Like I just looking at the projected standings in 2026 here for like Fangraphs, they have the Royals at 20 and 30. Right now, they have them as a 76 win team. Right. And it's funny because they actually still have a, what's their playoff odds? Even in the division, they still have a 17.5% chance to make the playoffs at 10 games below 500 right now, which I think says a lot about where they're at when it comes to the playoff race and just the American League in general, with still a 12% chance to win the division, which is hilarious. It's basically the Guardians still right now because the Tigers are in free fall like the Royals are. The White Sox are around 500, but I don't know how much longer that'll sustain. The Twins are the Twins. We knew they weren't going to be great coming into the year. They're better than the Royals right now. It's a really tricky spot for this team. And, you can look at all the silver linings you want and try and find the ways they can turn it around, but anytime they feel like that they've turned a corner, they turn back the other way and find ways to lose games in bunches. And that's something to this team's credit over the last 2 years. Not all the time. Like June was a disaster last year. We know that. Over the last 2 years, they've been able to not let the losses linger, right? And find ways to turn it around, win some of these games. It was a big reason why that 2024 team was able to have success was they didn't get swept a lot. I think they only got swept twice that entire season, maybe. I'd have to go back and look at that. Sounds about right. I don't think they got swept until like the end of August that year. They were able to still sneak out some wins when they were outplayed in a series overall, but they didn't get swept. They lost 2 or 3, right? That's fine. Or they found ways to win 2 of 3 and gut out some wins. This team just doesn't have that in them right now. And we'll see what they're made of this weekend against Seattle. A team that they just took 2 or 3 from the White Sox, but it wasn't pretty. With how they did it, they really had to eke one out today. They lost yesterday, and they're still pretty banged up. Brandon Donovan's back on the shelf. Cole Emerson, their top prospect, is up. Cal Raleigh's on the shelf. So it's going to be really interesting to see, kind of what are they made of? What are the Royals made of? And got a couple of pitching matchups that are going to be interesting. I think it's Gilbert, Kirby, and Wu that you're going to face. And I'll be out there Saturday, Sunday. We'll see what they're made of, what they have in them, and I'm curious. I don't know, because every time that I think, okay, hey, maybe they'll be able to brush this one off and come back tomorrow, it just that is losing its luster to me. The ability for this team to be able to turn the page, and I think that mentality, and people want to have their criticisms of McIntyre, and one of them is that he looks like he's asleep at the wheel, and he's the vibes are low and yada yada. Like, he's not a big rah-rah guy. Like, I think the idea of focus on today, don't worry about tomorrow, don't worry about yesterday, I think over 162 is actually a pretty good mentality to have, because it keeps you level. You're not riding the high too high, but you're also not riding the lows, right? You're not allowing the losses to affect you. You're also not allowing the wins to get you over your skis. I think it helps keep everyone kind of on the same page in that way. I do think, though, the downfall of that is that it is easier to have that mentality when you're winning games, right? That's easy to do in 2024 when you're winning a lot of games, when you win 86 games. It's easier to do that when you're riding some of these where, hey, we may not have won today, but we're going to got a chance to go win a series tomorrow or split a series tomorrow. Or maybe, hey, look, we need to go salvage one to give us momentum for the next game. It's easier to do that then than what they're doing now. when the losses are piling up. It's much harder to do that, I think. Just mentally. I mean, I can't imagine, right? Like you lose 9 of 10 and you're like, yeah, we got a game tomorrow. It's the good part and the downside of baseball. Yeah, I got a game tomorrow. I got a game tomorrow. You know, I'm not gonna try and paint it in sunshine and rainbows, right? Still is a lot of baseball left, and the American League is still bad. There's still. It's funny. 10 games under 500 most years. We're looking at baseball trade values, figure out what trades are going to be made. We still may be at that point, but this is just a very weird year in the American League that if they are able to get this thing turned around, I'm not going to hold out hope for it, given what I've seen the last week and a half. But if they're able to, we're maybe having a different conversation this weekend. Will tell us a lot of, have they let go of the rope? Is there still a little bit of fight left in them? We'll see. They've been a good home team the last few years, this weekend notwithstanding, and hopefully they're going to be able to scratch out some wins against Seattle and try and claw their way back once again, because that's what it's going to have to be. We'll talk about some of the first 50 games thus far, what's gone wrong, and is there any fix for it? We'll do that right after this.
The attorneys at Northland Injury Law have been serving the Kansas City area for over 40 years, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. They want to help you, and we don't get paid unless we get money for you. If you have a case, call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878 now.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
David Starnes Allstate Insurance is a proud partner of KC Sports Network, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. If you are looking for new coverage or something that better suits your home, auto, health, or any of your other insurance needs, give Dave and his team a call. Elevate your coverage and be worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance.
You know that moment, the one when you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at the gas station 3 states away. Well, I've been there too. But then I found Shady Rays and it changed the game. These sunglasses are made for real life. Seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And here's the wild part. If you lose them or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So I can actually wear my sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever. They have sunglasses for golfing, fishing, hiking, and biking, even sunglasses for kids. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use code KCSN for 40% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already. Leave us a 5-star review on the audio side. Do appreciate it. All right, 50 games in. That's enough with sample size to stop doing the small sample size theater thing. I think, you could probably knock off another 15 games. That's probably enough. So what's gone on? What's been the, some of the issues? And some of them are pretty glaring, obviously. I don't want to spend too much time on this first part of it because all teams go through it. I don't think it's an excuse, but I do think there's some explanation to it. Injuries have been a huge part of this on the pitching side. You come into the year expecting Reagans, you come to the year, with expectations for Bubic, and they both are on the shelf. Now I understand double TJ for Reagans, double, TJ for Bubic. It's not like you can rely on it, but certainly you didn't expect it to be the middle of May and they both are already on the injured list. In the bullpen, you've already gone through this with Strom. The Carlos Estevez thing really threw the bullpen into flux because you were expecting him to have the ninth inning, Ursig, Strom to handle 7-8, and then everything kind of falls into place from there. Everything had to get bumped up, and it got out of whack. They got it fixed, and to some degree, Daniel Lynch emerging is a huge reason why the bullpen was able to steady itself to some degree. But we'll see if that's able to continue as we go forward. And then the depth that this team created, and to the credit of JJ being like, hey, we didn't have enough of this last year. We have to go get more. And you add Mitch Spence, you go and get like an Eli Morgan, some of these guys, Aaron Sanchez in AAA, just not acting like Aaron Sanchez is going to pitch for the Royals, but just having those type of guys in Omaha ready to go that can handle big league innings. They didn't really have a lot of that. Eric Sarantola, got a little bit of time. But Ryan Berger out for the year with Tommy John. He's not really going to throw much until, probably the middle of 2027. Then Kudrna, who was on the 40-man roster, who maybe this year was going to get an opportunity if he pitched well. He's out for most of the rest of the season with an elbow surgery. Steven Zobak is on the shelf right now, another guy on the 40-man roster. So a lot of that depth that they created, they got hit with the attrition as well. So it wasn't just the guys that you were expected to be a part of the big league roster. It was also the guys that when called upon could come up and help shuffle arms. So that's less and less now. So now you're digging to the bottom of the barrel again with AAA to try and, make it work that way. It's why, you're calling up Eli Morgan in this situation. I don't think they could call up Sarantola yet, just based on the timing of when he was sent down last week. So it is not I don't think it's an excuse, but I do think when you are able to look at it a little more, that's probably like, you can't totally blame it on injuries, right? Like Noah Cameron's taken a big step back. Like that's been part of this. You had to rely on some high leverage innings with John Schreiber early in the year. Obviously that didn't go well. Steven Cruz, who took a step forward last year, took about 3 steps back. He, gives up the game again today. Ursig at the beginning of the year was, really dicey. He leveled things out a little bit, but, a couple of those games early in the year, not ideal. Nick Mears had a little stretch there where he thought he was going to be really good, and then he fell back to earth. Like, it's been a combination of the injury and the performance, and Matt Strom had a nice stretch, but the overall numbers and some of the underlying stuff is not necessarily in his favor at this point. Fastball's down a little bit. We'll see what he's like when he comes back. It's a knee thing, so who knows? And he's also, got a lot of miles on his arm just from being in the big leagues for 10 plus years, even if he's not necessarily been a full-time starter this entire time. It's still mileage. They're going to have some decisions to make with that rotation as we go forward. If this thing continues to go the way it's going, who knows who's actually going to be on in the rotation on August 1st. That's going to be the big thing to watch. And when you look at the Royals on offense, just in total, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Just holistically, like it's fine. Like, they're anywhere from like 17 to 21 in Major League Baseball. It's not good enough, and I'm not going to sit here and act like it's abysmal, like it's the Angels or the Reds, or anything like that. They're fine. They're not going to. We know the Royals. They're not going to strike out a lot. They're walking at still a decent enough clip. Like it's fine. They're 17th. They haven't been out of the bottom 10 in walk rate since like the late 90s. So that's a step in the right direction, but obviously it's not enough. The biggest thing is runners in scoring position stuff. I talked about it just this series. 3 for 16, leave 19 on base. Not going to win games that way. And, you can talk about the things that you're right, like process-wise. And this is a process-oriented sport and a results-oriented oriented business. Those things can be very diametrically opposed sometimes. Like you can do all the right things in baseball, square a ball up and hit it right at somebody and you're out. Like that's why you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're probably going to be a Hall of Famer. right? So there is a level of nuance to some of this, but the results are what they are. And at the end of the day, I don't care if you hit the ball hard. Like you can't get it if you can't get a big hit when it matters. Like some of that talk about the process goes out the window sometimes. And for this team, they are. I mean, they're not good with. I mean, they're abysmal with runners in scoring position. It's been a problem all year. A guy gets second base, and it's like everything just kind of goes out the window. I don't know if it's a mentality thing. I don't know if it's one of those things that's just snowball on itself. And now the entire team is thinking about it. When you're thinking in baseball, you got issues. Because right now, I mean, they're 29th in baseball with runners in scoring position just on the whole. Batting average, if you want to look at just batting average, they're 25th. The on base percentage is 27th, and the slug is one of the big problems. They're 29th. Slugging 334. It's a 655 OPS, and that's 29th in the league. 2 seasons ago, there was a big reason why the offense was good. Like the offensive numbers on the whole were like they were fine, but they were not some like juggernaut offense. They were just so good at getting that big hit that they were able to put up crooked numbers and win a lot of those games. And that year, they were 5th in the league with runners in scoring position. Right, they were a top 5 offense in that regard. They slashed 282, 348, 446 as a team. A little bit under an 800 OPS, 794. And that was a huge reason why they were going to succeed. Now, as we talked about last year, some of those numbers were so unsustainably high that it was going to swing back in the other direction to some degree. Like there is an element of that much like team defense in the NFL, like those numbers kind of vary year to year. It doesn't always just stay the same, right? Not the top 5 defenses in the NFL one year, not always the same top 5 the next year. That sort of thing. If I want to, equate it for more people that are more football fans. Last year, they would drop from 5th to 21st. So that pendulum swung hard. And the team that had the number 1 runners in scoring position offense was the Diamondbacks, and they dropped from 1 to 18. So you can see how that variance swings. And the Royals went from that near 800 OPS, and they dropped down to 255, 319, 404, 723 OPS. So about a 71 point drop from where they were last year. Okay? You hope that some of that variance then comes back in the other direction. You're able to, maybe water finds its level in their 12th, or anywhere from that, 9 to 12, which sure, that would actually be pretty, and the Royals would probably have a couple more wins if they were there, and instead they're 29th. So we've seen going from 5th to 21st to now 29th in the league with runners in scoring position. That is a precipitous drop. That's not just batted ball variance not being in your favor. That's not just a couple, some bad luck here and there. This is now a systemic problem with this offense. And that also doesn't include today where you went 0 for 4. This is what they had coming into today. I should clarify that, because Baseball Reference doesn't update until the next morning. That's what I'm using for this. So that's a huge reason why this offense is not gone forward, right? Like Bobby, and if you want to just talk about individual players, I talked about some of that in the beginning. Bobby's been great. He's been one of the best players in the league. I know that, some of the power numbers have started to come for him. But he's, the strikeout rate is in a pretty good place. He's walking more. Weighted runs created plus is in the mid 130s, with room for him to grow, I still believe, because the underlying numbers are still in a pretty good place with his ability to hit the ball. He's going to find time. He hit a ball 113 down the line today for a double. And so he's just racking those up. But Salvi's a year older. He hit the home run tonight, which was awesome. He's now 6 home runs away from George Brett for the franchise record in home runs, which is great. But on the whole, still has not been the same player. Father time comes for everybody, and seems like he's kind of knocking at that door right now. Vinny's taken a massive step back. Carter has been good at times, but also has his, had his rookie moments, as one does. Again, Jack has shown some signs that he's headed forward, but again, you're kind of relying on him. And he's not all the way there yet. Michael Garcia, they moved him back to the leadoff spot, and he's been okay. Certainly not the caliber that he was last year, but still been a pretty good player and a good defender. But I'll give credit to Kyle Isbell. Been good. For everything this team asks of him, he's probably been one of their most consistent offensive performers, with all things considered, with high-level defense in center field. Some of the ancillary pieces haven't been good enough offensively. You brought in Lane Thomas to hit lefties, and he can kind of do that. Can't do much else. The base running is really bad. In the field, he's -3 outs above average in center field. So there's a 6 outs above average gap between him and Kyle Isbell. That's pretty significant. Isaac Collins has been okay. I'm not going to sit here and act like he's been a world beater, but certainly been better than some other options that they've had in left field years past. In a bit of a slump right now, but he's still hitting the ball hard. So I feel like he's probably not going to be in a slump for too much longer, at least. I don't think. Starling Marte is 37, I'm not going to act like he's going to do too much, but he's been fine in the role that they have him in. I know they really wanted Jonathan India to work, but he's been out for the year. He only played 15 to 18 games for he didn't play too many games for this team before he got hurt. So there's been reasons, and you kept the main hitting coach around, in Zumwalt. You hire a couple other guys, but I haven't really seen a significant difference from the offense, just holistically. You see it in pockets, but I do wonder about that kind of the ultra aggressive approach for that Zumwalt has, right? Put the ball in play, be aggressive, barrel the ball, that sort of thing. And then you have the Connor Dawson, Marcus Thames, kind of they bring those guys in to help supplement that approach with a little more patient, selective, find your pitch sort of thing. My only thing that I wonder if those two ideas are so diametrically opposed, and the second time I've used that phrase in this episode, probably the only time that's ever happened. I just wonder if those ideas are just so different and separate from each other that they can't work in concert. That's the only thing that I'm wondered throughout this year as we've watched it. Because you see guys trying to be more patient, but then it almost works to their detriment because they're watching a fastball middle in that they probably could crush, but they're trying to see more pitches, which is fine, but also the best pitch you may see is that 0-0 fastball, And then you see times where they do get way too over aggressive in certain situations. And it's just like they haven't been able to find that right mix. I thought we'd see a little more of a blend, but I just wonder if it's too different for it to all work together. And then you move to, did they do enough this offseason? And that's one thing that people have talked about a lot. You trade the big offseason moves on the offense were trading for Isaac Collins and Nick Mears. Give up on Hill Serpa. You sign Lane Thomas to a $5 million deal. And that was about it. You get Charlie Marte late in the mix. And then it was just a bunch of those minor league free agent deals. The Josh Rojas's, the Kevin Newmans, the Abraham Toros, those guys that are big league depth, but not necessarily guys you want to rely upon if you don't have to. And the only reason what sparked me adding that topic in was, to his credit, Jarren Duran had a good series for Boston. He hit 2 home runs, had a couple extra base hits, walked 4 or 5 times, made a couple of great plays in left field. And we're like, well, if JJ had just traded for Jarren Duran, maybe the offense would have been awesome. They should have traded for Jarren Duran. JJ should have traded for Jarren Duran. Guys. Jarren Duran had a great series. With that great series, his weighted runs created plus is 71. Okay. Starts there. with the game he had tonight, slashing 195, 266, 362. He was an awesome player 2 years ago. When he would hit 285, 342, 492, was in your 7-win player with 14 triples, 48 doubles, 21 homers, 34 stolen bases. And the kid, he was a really good player then. And last year, dropped down to 256, 332, 442. The weighted runs created plus went from 131 to 111. Dropped from 6.8 WAR to 3.9. Now, a 4-1 player is still good. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh my God. But when you think about where he was a couple of years ago, to then dropping last year, to then being even worse this year, and the strikeout rate has increased the last 2 years. The ISO has gone down. The batting average has gone way down. The on-base has gone way down. The slug has gone way down. The weighted on-base average has gone way down. The weighted runs created plus is like a 50% drop. I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to drop the Jarren Duran conversation. If JJ Piccolo had traded for Jarren Duran and he was this, y'all would be killing him for it, especially given the prospect capital he probably would have had to give up to get Jarren Duran. I don't think it would have been the proposed Cole Reagans for Jarren Duran. I think it would have been some prospects, given what Craig Breslow has done. And if he had given up, Kendry Churio, I don't know, pick a name, right? David Shields, Blake Mitchell, I don't know what it was. Any of these guys that people are high on in the system to get Jarren Duran, given the controllable years and what he had done the previous 2 years, being worth about 10 wins above replacement over a 2-year span. And he turned into this 30% below league average hitter. He wouldn't be able to hear the end of it. So don't play Calvin ball just because the decision didn't go your way and a move that you wanted him to make didn't happen, and then he has his first good series all freaking year against the Royals, and that somehow we're going to retcon this whole conversation. Stop it, okay? Now I'm going to drop that conversation. That one just bothered me when I saw that today from people. Like, Jarren Duran has not been good. Let's not let this series cloud what he has been the rest of this year. Bad. And if he was this bad in Kansas City, y'all would not let JJ Piccolo hear the end of it. So let's not do that. Like, I use the Calvin ball analogy a lot. One, because I love Calvin and Haas, but two, it plays into real life pretty darn well. People love to just make the rules up as we go along to fit whatever their narrative is. But when you look at some of the other players that could have been signed by the Royals in this offseason, right? There weren't many that I look at, and it's tricky because I still think they probably could have and should have done more to upgrade the roster so that you're not having to rely so hard on Jack and Carter to take steps forward. So much on the plate of Bobby Wood Jr. Even if he is a great player entering his prime. But like some of the guys that they could have acquired or like were kind of in that range that people were like, oh, hey, maybe they should go sign this guy. Like a perfect example, this is Rob Refsnyder. That was a name that I really liked in that Lane Thomas role of like, oh, hey, lefty killer, can, play it outside of a platoon. I'll find the other side of the platoon, but that could be a guy to go get. And we'll see him coming up here when they come to Seattle, or when Seattle comes to Kansas City, my apologies. And in 73 plate appearances, 31 games, almost exclusively against left-handed pitching, he's slashing 109, 178, 203. That's a 381 OPS. Last year, he was an 838 in Boston, 830 the year before. Almost exclusively as a lefty killer. It's an 11 OPS plus. And the guy's been horrific. And he's making, by the way, folks, that may think Lane Thomas is the worst player to ever exist. Rob Refsnyder's making more money than Lane Thomas is right now. By about $1 million. give $6 million. Yeah, imagine giving $6 million to Robert F. Snyder instead of Lane Thomas, who's fine. Another guy I really liked and that I actually was in favor of bringing back to Kansas City was Mike Yastrzemski, in that the lefty side of a platoon. And he's slashing 233, 299, 331 for a 629. He had an 839 OPS in 186 plate appearances in Kansas City last year in that, platoon role. And he actually walked more than he struck out. I didn't realize that. It's actually really interesting. And I'm not trying to straw man this stuff, but these were names that, you kind of looked at and talked about. And Cedric Mullins was another name, hey, maybe you can bring him in on a cheap 1-year deal and play him as a fourth outfielder or whatever. And he's slashing 184, 247, 277 with a 523 OPS after really he hasn't been the same since that year in 2021. There's just and I'm sure there's others. Those are just a couple examples of guys that, the Royals could have had. Oh, Adolis Garcia. Let's see how he's doing, by the way. Making $12 million for the Philadelphia Phillies. And he's slashing 211, 285, 327, 612 OPS with 4 homers and 55 strikeouts on 193 plate appearances. He's been worth negative .5 WAR. Harrison Bader. There was some talk that the Royals were linked to him. I'm live looking this up as we go. I'm just going up the list. And he got as I'm looking at this, he got a 2-year, $20.5 million deal from the Giants. So they're on the hook for another year after this. And he's slashing 160, 188, 358, 3 walks in 85 plate appearances. He's only played in 22 games too, so I guess you have that aspect of it. 546 OPS in the games that he had played. Boba, and this one definitely would have been more of a pipe dream. So take that for what it's worth. Russ, we were screw it. See if you can go get Bo Bichette, right? Spend a little bit, go and cap into the bank a little bit. Go get Bo Bichette, who, by the way, is making $50-something million on a 1-year, $52 million deal with 2 player options. So pretty penny, making $52 million this year to hit 224, 277, 332. The 609 OPS. And that's inflated by him hitting home runs in back-to-back games over the weekend. In 213 plate appearances for the Mets, 74 OPS plus. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, not going to act like the offense is perfect. Not going to act like everything is awesome. But imagine if they made some of the moves of guys that I read up here. I mean, think about where the offense is now. Imagine if they gave everyday at-bats to Harrison Bader in left field. Or everyday at-bats to, those left-handed at-bats they're giving to Starling Marte. And Lane Thomas to Robert F. Snyder. Right? It would have been, you could have, instead of making the 2018 Chris Owings signing, they could have made 4 of those in one offseason. Right? So we'll see what ends up happening with this roster as we go forward. The lineup stuff is another thing that, they have to consider. It seems to me, I don't think there's any reason for Salvador Perez to still be hitting 4th or 3rd for this team. And they already moved Vinny down the other day against the lefty. Seems like kind of just dancing with the girl they brought until it's untenable, even though I think it became untenable about 20 games ago. I'm curious when they actually do make that move. Right? Are they just kind of waiting for it to be okay, hey, it's not happening. Jack, you're hitting 4th the rest of the year. Screw it. Let's see if you got it, kid. Are we going to get to that? Is it going to be that, once it's out of hand? It was kind of in a tricky place that even though things were trending downward, they were still close enough with the wild card and with the division to still justify keeping the veterans in there 3-4 because that was probably still their best lineup and their best outcome, even if the numbers didn't reflect it. Like I think that's the argument, and that's for that side of it. But you're 10 games under now with really no, I don't know if there is an end in sight with this. We'll see if they have it and what they have left. I hope that they're able to turn it around. A series in Seattle, against Seattle. My God, Joel, I've had a long day, guys. I'm sorry. And we'll see. We'll see what they have. Friday, your pitchers here, you got Logan Gilbert against Noah Cameron. Saturday is going to be George Kirby, I believe, against Stephen Kolek. George Kirby against Stephen Kolek. And then Sunday is going to be Brian Wu against Seth Lugo. So a couple of really good pitching matches. I'm excited for the Kirby Kolek outing. I will be out there on Saturday and Sunday covering the game for KCSN. So check my socials. I'll tweet out, videos and stuff, while I'm there, live tweet the game, live post-game show coming up after that. Before I get out of here, it's kind of been sitting on my heart for a couple of weeks. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. That's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Someone that goes through mental health struggles. I am right now. Been a rough few days. Found out a friend of mine from college passed away suddenly. Found out that this morning. So I've had that on me, today. Praying for Adam and his wife and his family. I don't really. It's something that I've been sitting on. Haven't been able to find the right words. So I know this is probably a bit of an awkward end as I got this thing going, but if you're going through stuff, whatever the case, know that you're not alone. You always have that you have people in your life that do love you and care about you, even if your brain tells you that that's not the case. It's not true. Seek help if you're able. The suicide hotline is there online. You're able to look it up. I don't have it off the top of my head, but if you're going through stuff, I understand. My DMs are open generally. If you're going through stuff, hit me up. Instagram, Twitter, whatever the case. Love you guys. This stuff, mental health, it's a hard topic to bring up, to talk about, be vulnerable about, my goodness. Because societally, especially as men, like we're kind of taught to suppress that stuff and put it away and just be a man, suck it up. But this is way more manly than anything else, right? To be vulnerable, to be able to express your feelings in a way that, allow people to help you, and that help is out there, again, even if your brain tells you it's not, it is. I know that probably wasn't the best mental health message on the planet. It's just kind of what was sitting here as I was thinking about trying how I wanted to end this thing. But, maybe if I have a little more time to write something down, I can do a little more of a formal one. But just wanted you guys to know that, we all go through it and it does get better. It does. Wake up tomorrow and know that tomorrow, there's another day. Keep showing. I have it tattooed on my arm here. Keep showing up. You guys probably seen little images. That's what I tell myself. Like, no matter what, show up, and because it'll matter to the people around you that you're there, because you do matter. With that, we're gonna end this thing. Appreciate you guys. Like, rate, subscribe, review, and we will talk on Saturday evening after the end of Royals Mariners from Kauffman Stadium. We'll talk soon, everybody. Take care.